episode number 126 with Clayton Fletcher. Welcome to the Heads Up Poker Podcast. This is Steve Barton, and thank you for tuning in. We are bringing back
Steve,
Clayton.
hold on. Steve, hold on. Can I get three guesses? You just told me you were having one of your favorite comedians on. You didn't tell me who. I want to see if I can figure this out. I have to decipher what you think is funny. You know what I mean?
You got to read it through the filter there.
Yeah. I'm convinced it's probably. If I'm wrong, I get a couple more guesses. It's probably Webster, right?
Yes, yeah. Gary Coleman was at the top of my list. Yes.
Is it Webster or no? Do I get the second guess?
You're going to need more than that.
Let me think here. Oh, wait a second. You're a Carrot Top kind of guy.
Clayton Fletcher. How the hell are you, man?
Hey guys, what's going on?
Steve, you're a very simple man, and that should have been my first guess. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we can all aspire to be at the level of a Carrot Top, but it's just a dream at this point.
Yes. So how the hell are you, man? What you been up to?
I'm good. I'm in New York. I'm doing a lot of stand-up. I was in Florida. I got to play some poker down in Florida. Nice. Yeah, I had some fun. I made a final table, a little buy-in, low buy-in final table, but it was good to kind of gear up a little bit for Vegas. I can't wait for the summer. I'm like counting the days until we can get out there and start making some money.
Yeah,
nice.
Me too.
What days are you going?
I'll be there for pretty much the whole thing. There's like a week in the middle where I have some gigs I have to go do, but then I'll get back as soon as I can. I'm going to play about 25 events this summer.
Wow.
Good for you, man. Right on.
Yeah, I got a full schedule.
Is this different for you, but getting to spend the whole summer out there, or have you usually just a couple of weeks, or is this kind of what you always do?
Yeah, the last few years I've pretty much been there for the whole summer. There's usually kind of a week or two in the middle where I like suddenly remember that I'm supposed to be a stand-up comic, and then I go and do that for a week or two, and then I come back and get back to business playing cards.
But you're playing a lot of tournaments this year. Is that new, or is a little bit?
No, I mean I try to play around between 15 and 20 tournaments every summer.
Okay. I thought
then
you were mostly cash. Yeah.
No, and then outside of the World Series, I'll play like maybe another 20 or 25 through the rest of the year. The cash games usually come in more like if I'm in a city where they have a casino and I have a show, and then after the show I can go play cash at night. So yeah, I actually probably end up spending about as much time playing cash as I do tournaments through the course of the year.
Yeah. What
you obviously must be doing well in cash games or making money doing comedy club, because you actually are really lighting money on fire. You just sent me some money.
Yeah, I don't know. In a moment of weakness, I saw that Mike was begging for cash on 2+2, so I said, I gotta help him out, so he's not standing in front of the Rio with like a tin cup in his hand.
Pretty much, yeah. For only $1 a day, you can feed this poker player.
I think a tin cup might be pushing it. It's more like a dirty left sock that he's holding out.
Yeah, you need to upgrade, Mike.
Right on. And you got his package A, right?
Yeah, I'm really excited for that. I mean, look, I got a lot of faith in Mike. I know Mike's a train wreck, like mentally, but poker-wise, he's good. He knows what he's talking about. He knows what he's doing. He's studied the game, and I was happy to back him. Kidding aside, I'm happy to back you, Mike.
Thank you. Yes. Very kind, sir.
And I don't care if you bust in the first level of every event, because if you think it's the right play, do it. When you're playing and you're backed, you can't be thinking about your backers. You just got to play your game. That's it.
Yeah.
How about you? Do you have some dumbass comedy friends who just give you bills and say good, give me some money or what?
No, they don't know anything about poker. Most of the comedians I know like give me $20 and say put this on red.
Right.
They don't have any idea what it means to go play in the World Series or anything. But, the year when I made day 5 of the main event 2 years ago, a lot of the comedy community was following my every move on Twitter, which was kind of fun to have everybody cheering for me. They didn't really know exactly what I was tweeting about all the time, but they knew if things went well, I'd be a millionaire. So they were all excited for me.
Right, they got the important detail, right?
Yeah. So they were all just kind of like, I don't know what that means, but good luck, Clayton.
So what is your summer schedule? Do you know mixed games? Is it no limit hold'em exclusively? Just the Rio, just the bracelet tourneys, or what is it? What does that look like?
I'll be bouncing around a little bit, mostly the Rio, a few of the good ones at Venetian, a couple of Planet Hollywoods, mostly no limit hold'em. I'm going to play a couple of PLO events. I'm not really good enough at the other games to invest in myself. If I had some billionaire backer that didn't care and wanted to put me in the stud 8, I'd love to play and just do some bracelet hunting. But, when it's on my own dime, I just can't do that because I'm not ready to compete with the best in the world at some of those specialized games like that.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Makes sense. What cash game do you have? Do you have a sweet spot there for cash? You might not want to share us like the best game in town or by your estimates anyways.
I mean, I really like the 510 at the Wynn, especially in the summer. They tend to get a good mix of players. I like the 1020 at Bellagio, but a lot of times they'll put the $40 straddle on, and then it starts to hurt a little when you lose a pot. So it's a little over my head when the straddle's on, but sure. I would like to be able to just say 1020 and no straddle, but no, this is Vegas. We straddle all the time. So I probably stick to 510 unless I bink something, and then I can just go blow it all at the Bellagio cash table.
Right. Buy yourself a sack of magic beans and just walk around town seeing if they.
Exactly.
Tossing them out in every street corner.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, I can't wait. I've been getting ready. I didn't exactly take the Carlos Welch diet plan seriously.
No black beans for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think he just found out that black beans cost less than pork. If Carlos is nothing if not cheap, he's a cheap guy. He's like, oh, well, I can eat for like $2 a day if I just stick to vegetables and beans and stuff.
So true.
Well, and you can also break into people's like backyards and steal some of their stuff from their garden. They don't really claim, But if you kill their dog to make make some fillets, they get angry.
Yeah, they don't like that. They don't like that.
How are the? You've been going to Vegas for a while. This has been something I'm obsessing over lately. Just the one guy I'm getting some coaching from is he's always emphasizing how much worse the cash games are than like 5 years ago. And how
definitely.
It's just he thinks it's just gonna keep getting worse. I mean, is it for you? Was it like 5-10 years ago you just show up at Commerce and print money, and now you really have to game select?
Yeah, well, I mean, if we're talking about Vegas, it used to be you just show up during the World Series of Poker. You could pretty much go to any casino in town, and not only would they have a cash game going, they would also have a poker room in which that cash game could be going, and they would have players at that table. And I mean every casino. And now about half the casinos that used to have really good cash games don't even have poker rooms anymore.
Right.
A lot of them have shut down. I mean, I used to love the Palms. I used to live 2 blocks from the Palms, and I would just go in there pretty much every night and play in really juicy 2-5 games when I was kind of cutting my teeth. This would have been, I guess, maybe 07, 08, really the first time I lived in Vegas for an extended period. I mean, it wasn't that long. I was there for maybe 3 or 4 months when I used to just kind of get out of New York. New York is miserable in the winter. If anyone's ever lived in New York during the winter time, it's pretty much you can get very depressed. So I used to do anything to get out of town. Like I go work on a cruise ship, or I go play poker in Florida, just whatever I could find. So one year I went basically from January to April, and I rented an apartment couple blocks away from the Palms with a buddy of mine. And we used to go play every night. Every night there'd be a really, not just a cash game, but a really good, really juicy cash game. Right. Now I find it's gotten much tougher. You can still find games like that, but they're no longer the norm like they used to be.
And the average 2-5 game in Vegas, probably at all the casinos, wherever you go, is going to have 2 or 3 pros at least there to, taking it very seriously and trying to. Is that about right, you think? Or
yeah, I think so. It really depends on what the biggest game in the room is. I find whatever casino you're in, you usually don't want to play the biggest game in the room. So even if it means you have to kind of humble yourself and play, right. Say you're at a place where they have a 1-3, a 2-5, and a 5-10. You want to play the 2-5 because the best players will all be in that 5-10 game. And your hourly may actually be higher in the lower game if all the good players are at that other table. So, yeah, I think game selection is much more important than it was, 8 or 9 years ago when I was playing cash games professionally in Vegas. I mean, you could pretty much just sit back and wait for spots and just bet it up. But I think nowadays we all need to be a little bit more creative in order to make money in the cash games.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. What? Where are you going to be staying when you're out for the WSOP? Did you rent a house or?
No, I'll be at the Hard Rock. I know it's kind of weird because the Hard Rock is not near the Rio or any of the other casinos where I'll be playing. But a couple of years ago, I went to a bachelor party at the Hard Rock, and I was with some ballers. And we went absolutely crazy playing blackjack and roulette and just partying up for my friend's bachelor party. And now they give me incredible prices on rooms. I guess they're hoping that I'm going to just have another bachelor party by myself. But yeah, the deal that they give me, it's just too good. So it's worth it for me. And, in a way, it's kind of nice to get away from the Rio at the end of the night and just go somewhere else, whether it's to a house or to a different casino where you're unlikely to run into your opponents.
Yeah.
It's just kind of nice to be able to have dinner someplace where no one's talking about how their aces got cracked.
Yeah.
That wears on me after a while. I don't like shop talk.
Sure. Yeah, you want to get away from it. You've been dealing with it for 12 hours. It's time to unwind. Yeah, you want to think about something else. So yeah, I think it's a big mistake to stay at the Rio. Apologies to anyone that enjoys that and wants to do it. But for me, I just think it's very tilting to be in that smoky place surrounded by schlubby fat guys in sweatpants talking about 3 betting. And so I just don't want to hear it. Game's over. Let's go home.
I do like being able to just for dinner break, just go up to my room. That's where I've been the last 2 summers. That's like the big, and just not having to deal with the car, having to drive somewhere. But it said Vegas, even with all it's not really, it's not hard to get around there. So.
Well, you guys are going to think I'm crazy, but 9 times out of 10, I walk from the Hard Rock to the Rio.
Wow.
It takes about an hour, and then I'll get a cab home at night, or I even take the bus if I don't have cash on me. I'll take the bus home. I don't like to.
That's definitely a good warm-up routine.
Yeah,
get some blood flowing, and you got an hour basically to get in the right mindset before you start playing. Yeah,
it gives me a chance to listen to a podcast like this one, or an Elliot Roe MP3 if I had one. I don't do it yet. I'm sorry, guys. I haven't. Mike, I know that Steve is imploring us to download the Elliot Roe MP3s every single week. I haven't gotten around to doing it yet.
The 7-minute Tilt-Buster, Clayton. It's free. It doesn't even cost anything.
I purchased them. I don't use them quite as religiously as Steve here, so I can't.
Promise me you'll listen to the 7-minute Tilt-Buster on your way in sometime during the WSOP.
Yeah, I can pretty much promise that because by my calculations, I'm going to need about 75 hours
of content.
Walking.
Walking content. But, this is kind of my way to stay in shape during the series. We all tell ourselves we're going to go to the gym every day when we're there. But then when
like 4.5 days.
Yeah, then when the crazy 8 starts at 10 a.m., you're not going to the gym. Come on, you're barely going to roll out of bed and get there for the 10 o'clock start. Yes. But this way, I get up. As long as I leave the hotel by 9, I'll be at the Rio by 10 and ready to play. So that's kind of how I do it. It's my trick that I play on myself. If I stay at the Rio, I would get zero exercise at all. And between that and not eating the black bean diet that Carlos recommended, I'd be a fat schlub before the November 9, which, by the way, is going to happen in July this year. I don't know if you guys knew that.
That is great. It's about time they went back to that.
Yeah, good. They're not extending it to 4 months later in November or whatever?
Yeah, they made a big announcement the other day. They've signed a partnership with Poker Central to do live streaming of the entire main event starting on day 1A. And they're also going to finish the main event in July. That's why they never announced the dates for the November 9. When the schedule first came out, that was all TBA, because I think this was all a work in progress. They also extended their deal with ESPN for another 4 years.
Oh, wow.
So, I'm sure by now most of the listeners have heard all this news, but we might as well try to catch Steve up on what's going on.
Right.
Thank you, Clayton. Yes.
Now, what do you think is a lot of people said it's just these November 9 coverage is just boring as hell. These guys they've all been working on balancing their folding time for 3 months and et cetera. Just for that reason, I don't know if that's like a major factor or if I think that's one of the reasons, right? Plus, I think it's just also adds to the excitement there, where you just keep going with the tournament. I think even with all the TV coverage and hyping November 9, I think it kind of sucks some of the energy out of it personally, as someone who follows poker.
Well, yeah, I agree. And when they first started broadcasting the World Series of Poker back in the 1980s, they never used to show the whole cards, and so no one really knew what was going on. But the early days of ESPN, when they couldn't get Major League Baseball and NBA basketball, whatever, they had to put on whatever kind of sports they could. So when ESPN first started, they were probably the only network that would even consider putting poker on TV. And so back then they didn't have technology to show the whole cards. The whole cam hadn't been invented yet, but they would show the tournament. And it was entertaining for people to watch because of the characters and the good guys and the bad guys, colorful casino types that you would find. But,
right.
Less and less those people are populating the sport as it's taken over by boring math geek millennials with no personality. That makes it really hard to be engaging for the average viewer, the casual fan. Yeah. For 12 hours all night long. They're not going to watch people who aren't even, no one's talking trash. No one's showboating. They don't even celebrate when they win a pot. Yeah. This is no fun.
There's not the old guy sitting at the table smoking a cigar. Yeah.
Yeah, we need the Sam Grizzles. We need the Phil Hellmuth. We need it's like the Yankees in baseball. We need someone to hate.
Yes.
Otherwise, what's the point?
Yes.
What would Rocky be without
November 9ers themselves? That gap has probably been good. First of all, they can come to Vegas a week early with all friends and family and live it up, like really enjoy the experience and get some money from a patch and this and that. But for the average poker viewer, I really don't know if the November 9 did enrich the event in any way.
Yeah, I mean, notably there was one year when Phil Ivey made the final table. I think it was the second year they did the November 9. And that was a good one for people to watch because, from an entertainment standpoint, remember, my background is in entertainment. So I'm looking at everything from the perspective of, well, this is for someone that's not like you and me. Like the three of us would sit there and watch the most boring poker players play their hands and take forever. And we would probably still be intrigued because we're thinking of the subtleties of the sport. But you can't try to sell that to the masses. And ESPN is not a small network anymore like it was when it started. It's trying to compete with everything else that's on TV.
Sure.
And that's why last year they kind of buried the November 9 like on Halloween and stuff because they were like, well, this is going to be something we're not going to be able to sell a lot of advertising for because the ratings are down. It really didn't turn into what they hoped it would be, but also the network didn't do a great job of creating drama around the November 9. Like they should have built up stories of each of these characters. Like that was the idea. Like between July and November, we could start to get people interested in these 9 players and who's going to win. Yeah. And the other thing that I think
if they ever had like a dream final table, which would be, you have Gail Bauman who does her Maxim cover in the interim, some beautiful woman, and then a couple insufferable bastards, maybe Phil Hellmuth, and then James Woods or some pseudo celebrity or celebrity making the final table. If they had that, then they'd be disappointed. There was no gap, but other than that,
I mean, we just don't have enough interesting people.
When is the final table? What day is that in July? Do you know?
Oh, let me Google that for you, Steve.
No, I think it's I think there is a 3-day gap between.
Let me just Google that for you, buddy. It's like, there's like 2 days off.
I'll get that for you.
You just rest your head, Steve. Let me do the hard work.
Get you a pillow here. Hang on.
So Clayton, if I can, move back to comedy here, probably. Just quickly, I'm looking. I jumped on your site. And I'm looking at some of your schedule here. And do you have kind of almost like a set schedule? I mean, have you gotten sort of like every year when the World Series of Poker is? Do you have? I mean, has it gotten sort of the same thing every year where you're like, well, I'm going to be in New York in the spring, and going to Florida for a month here, and then I'll be doing my European thing in the fall. Is it always bouncing around? Or
yeah, I'm always bouncing around, but it's more like if somebody offers me a gig during a World Series tournament that I want to play, that gig has to be a really good gig or I'll turn it down. So it's more like, beggars can't be choosers. And as a comedian, I'm definitely a beggar. Unless you're in the top 1% of comedians that are famous household names, Kevin Hart, Chris Rock, Amy Schumer, you can't really set your own schedule quite like that. But what I can do is say, is my EV of playing the shootout higher than the money that I'm going to make doing this show?
Right.
So I just try to balance things like that. So yeah, I'll be leaving right in the middle of the World Series of Poker because I have a couple of gigs that when combined, I expect to make more money telling jokes that week than I would playing in the tournaments that are available to me. So I have to.
What gig are you doing? It's going to be out in Vegas, right?
No, I'm actually going to leave Vegas for about a week in the middle of the – and it's a heartbreaker too because I have to miss the Monster Stack, which I've never gotten to play. I have to miss the 1500 Shootout, which is probably one of my favorite events. And the biggest heartbreaker of all, I have to miss the 1500 Bounty event. I love bounty tournaments.
Yeah.
And I'm really just heartbroken that I don't get to play that one because it's probably going to have a really good turnout. That's on Monday, June 26th, but I won't get back to Vegas until the 27th. So, yeah. But poor me. I get to play 25 tournaments. I'm just going to cry me a river now.
First world problems, Clayton.
Sorry, guys. Sorry. Poor Clayton.
There's a poor little Indian kid right now just with one tear just streaming down his cheek as he doesn't even have the energy to bat away a fly from his eyes right now. So, yes, we feel your pain, sir.
Yeah, sorry, everybody. I heard myself feel it, and I hated myself for a minute.
I was just going to ask Clayton, I mean, some of these comedy clubs you visit every year, do you have like regulars, like what kind of when you go to Boca Raton, like Mr. and Mrs. Johnson are going to be there in the front row because they love you. They come every year.
Yeah, it's so cool. Like when people come out and see the show again and they might see me in a different place.
Like I had a couple last week. I did my show in New York. I have my own show. It happens with or without me every Friday night at Greenwich Village Comedy Club. It's called the Clayton Fletcher Show, but it's kind of like in the old days when half the time Joan Rivers would fill in for Johnny Carson. Like I'm not always there, but the show must go on with or without me. But I had a couple that had seen me at Mohegan Sun like 2 years earlier, and like, well, we were looking for something to do tonight, and the guys on the street said that you were here, and we're like, oh, that's the guy we saw at the casino in Connecticut. Oh, let's go check him out. And they came back and they said they were really happy because they didn't remember any of the jokes, so they were glad it was a different show. I try to mix it up for people.
They only heckled you half as much as the previous time.
Yeah.
You're like, I must be getting better.
The lettuce wasn't quite as rotten as it usually is.
Right, yeah. I mean, always bring your rotten vegetables to the comedy show. There you go, Carlos. If you don't eat all those vegetables, you could just save them up for the big gig. Because Joe Stapleton and I are supposedly going to be performing out there. So I'll make sure people know. If you follow me on Twitter at Clayton Comic, I'll let you guys know the details. But I think it's going to be during the main event one night after play has concluded, so that any poker players who want to come out can come check out the comedy show.
Where's it physically going to be located? Do you know?
Well, I can't say for sure because it's not a done deal. But it's going to be pretty close to where we're all playing.
Does Joe Stapleton, has he done stand-up? Is that where his background is?
Yeah. Crazy story about Joe Stapleton. He was living in L.A. and he was visiting New York. And somebody gave him my information. He didn't know who I was. This was a few years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And he emailed me like out of the blue, like, hey, my name is Joseph Stapleton, and I'm a comedian from L.A. I got your information from blah, blah, blah. And, I would love to get some hookups. Like, how can I get some stand-up in while I'm visiting New York? And I was like, is this the same Joe Stapleton from, like, Poker Road Radio back in the day? And do you host stuff for Poker Stars? And he's like, yeah, that's me. I was like, well, guess what? I'm a poker player. So of all the people for you to reach out to, I'm probably the only one in town that has heard of you. So I got your back. I gave him a bunch of gigs. I hooked him up with every booker, and we did a bunch of shows together, and we became instant friends, obviously, with my interest in poker and his interest in comedy. Yeah. And that's actually led to me getting a couple of gigs doing some commentary on some poker tournaments myself. I have Stapes, so shout out to Stapes for hooking me up like that.
Right on.
Well, I know you did Live at the Bike. What else? There's other stuff you might do for commentary or that you have done?
Yeah, well, last summer I got a chance to get in with David Tuckman and do a couple of the final tables. I did the
that's right.
Yeah, I did the Millionaire Maker and 2 or 3 others. I had a great time doing that. I really feel like that's something I'd like to do more. It's a way for me to combine my knowledge of poker with my love of comedy, and it's fun because I'll tell a joke on the live stream, and I don't hear anybody laughing, which is exactly what happens at the comedy club every night. So I'm right at home. Very comfortable in that setting. The silence is golden.
No feedback.
Yeah, nothing at all.
I think we talked about it last time you were on, and I was like, man, that's got to be like I was watching one of your clips on YouTube, and you had a joke that I thought was very funny, and the audience just didn't make a sound. You just kept going on.
I love when people post those kind of videos. If you're in the audience and you happen to be recording the show, first of all, that's illegal. It's a copyright infringement. You're not supposed to record the show. But if the comic's bombing, at least don't put it up on YouTube for crying out loud.
That's a fair request.
Yeah, sometimes the stage is a lonely place.
That happened to me. We were on a fire, and I was pulling hose out of the back of the engine, and it really was like a Bugs Bunny cartoon. I had both feet just up on the engine, and I am literally vertical, just trying to get this hose out of there. It's caught up, and all of a sudden it breaks loose, and I just go ass over tea kettle, spaghetti hose all, and I look up, and there's this asshole holding an iPad. Videotaping the whole thing, and I'm like,
you want to help a guy out here?
Yeah.
Great.
Is there the other thing that's funny? I was thinking about this. I was trying to think of some ways to compare comedy to. You listen to like some poker people get interviewed or whatever. There's always like a little animosity towards like, well, Jamie Gold or Jerry Yang. I mean, dumb luck has a lot to do with poker, let's be honest. Over the long run, the cream rises to the top. But, I mean, is there anything comparable, like in the comedy world, like some guy that you and your maybe comedians that are like your level, like working comics and doing well, but not, haven't hit it big?
Yeah.
Are there like a couple guy, like somebody you did a comedy show with back in the years? Like, I can't believe that guy has a show.
It's a really good question, and one that it's probably not in my best interest to answer.
Okay.
Because
Fair
it's
enough.
kind of a small world in comedy, and if I start talking trash about this comic or that comic, it's probably going to get back to him or her. But I will just say, kind of generally, there are a lot of Jerry Yangs in the comedy world where we're all just like, how the heck? No. You can probably guess some of them, but I won't confirm or deny.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it isn't really, I guess, probably luck as much as just, timing, I guess, maybe more. But I remember somebody using, the guy, the Seinfeld, Jason Alexander and Michael Richards. They were just, if they never, had these characters, they would have just been,
Yeah.
They would have been just probably struggling artists rather than, now they're recognized the two funniest character actors ever. But, a lot of that was luck, too, obviously.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there are countless people in the entertainment world trying to make it big, and there aren't that many that can make it big. It's just like, how many people can win each poker tournament? One.
Right.
So it's very similar in the sense that you kind of, when you get involved in these things, you're basically taking out a lottery ticket, and you just feel like you have a slight edge over the other players, but everybody's kind of entering a lottery. The people who have the real advantage in entertainment are the people who are related to people who are already famous. As you'll notice, most of the movie stars out there, they have last names like Douglas. I'm trying to think, who else? Like Goldie Hawn's daughter. She's very cute, and she's a perfectly fine actor. But, would she really have beaten all those other actresses out for those roles? We'll never know, because she didn't really have to audition for all those roles, because her mother is basically royalty. So
she was already in the business.
Yeah, so you're at a huge advantage. It's almost like being born with the last name Clinton or Trump. You're going to have a leg up on a lot of the competition if you try to get into politics. It's very similar to most industries, but it just seems like even more so in Hollywood, where things are kind of based on who are you, who is your mom, who's your dad. It's almost like our own version of royalty. And we kind of treat celebrities like royalty in a sense in this country, which I'll never understand.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think the Kardashians are that fascinating, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, they're nice to look at, but a lot of women are nice to look at. I don't really think that's – yeah, but I'm not trying to be a hater either. If anyone out there is like, oh, you're just hating, if I had a famous mother that was already, a big movie star, and I got to make 100 movies in my career because of that, I would, of course, take advantage of that opportunity. I just don't think the system is set up as a meritocracy, because honestly – acting isn't that hard. That's the secret that people don't know. Acting isn't that hard. We all do it when we're children. I watch any group of children. They're all acting. They're pretending that they're, playing doctor or playing house or whatever other kind of games, just make believe. And that's basically what acting is. You take a couple classes and you can do it. So the number of people that could do the part might be 20,000. And then the person who gets the part is one. So, yeah, it's kind of like binking the Colossus or something.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I was at. I think we talked about this last time you were on. I was asking about TVs and movies, and if this was something that was a real priority for you.
Yeah, it's really
you
not.
We're kind of happy with being, basically where you're at now, doing the stand-up comedy.
Yeah, I mean, I have a good career. I go all over the world telling my jokes. I've worked with a lot of more famous comedians,
Like when I open for a celebrity comic and I see the way that poor guy can't ever be off because people are constantly watching him, taking pictures. You know, I like to be able to like do the gig and then kind of go back to my room. Now, I mean, of course, he's better off than I am in the sense that he's making 30 times the money I do for the same show. But, you know, there's a price that you have to pay, which is basically giving up your anonymity. Now, if I win the main event, I think I'll be a good poker ambassador. I'll be very visible. I'll show everyone that not everyone who plays poker is a scumbag or a boring millennial math geek. And I'll try to make the game fun, and I'll try to bring more people in, all that stuff, and I'll relish the opportunity. But I think, you know, if you saw last year's November 9 winner walking down the street, he's not swamped by adoring fans asking for his autograph 24 hours a day.
No.
So I feel like the kind of fame you could achieve in poker is the right kind of fame for me. Yeah. You know?
Well, I hope you and Mike get heads up, and then Mike takes the title because I've got 1% of his name. But I'll be rooting for you, Clayton.
I think Mike would be an excellent ambassador for the game too. You know, Mike,
I think it'd be perfect.
Yeah.
I would probably be just arrested 3 times just on my drive back to Oceanside. On some, you know.
Oh, we could have a weekly show called Mike's Greatest Hits, you know, and just never-ending content.
Mike could have his own series called How I Spent $8 Million in 4 Days. Right after he wins the main event, we'll go spend the money in 4 days.
With strippers and blow. Downhill from there.
And then a documentary of me hitchhiking to Maine to see if I can borrow some money from my mother.
Right.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Well, you got some strategy hands, right, Clayton?
Yeah, I do. From last summer, actually. I saved them for you guys.
Oh, really? Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, let me quickly tell you this strategy section is brought to you by Tournament Poker Edge. You play tournaments. I play tournaments. Mike and Clayton play tournaments. Go to Tournament Poker Edge. It's in the name. It gives you an edge in tournaments. You can watch instructional videos, learn from the pros. Casey Jarzabek is on TPE, probably one of the most entertaining guys in the poker world. Carlos even has a free video up there he did with Andrew Brokus. You can click on the link in the show notes for the free training video. You can watch Carlos's video with Andrew doing a review of his 100K guaranteed win. Go through the free videos, check them out. There's hours of them. When you join the club, you'll get access to almost 2,000 videos, tournament theory, tournament strategy. It's just a fun group of people that come together on the site, and we all talk about poker tournaments. When you join, use the code HUP month, HUP quarter, HUP year. Save yourself some cash, study and learn with other people that are just like us. It'll be the best thing you've ever done for your tournament game. I guarantee it. All right, Clayton. What tournament are these from? Are these from the main, or are these...
Well, the first hand I wanted to bring up is actually from the Colossus. I think a lot of the listeners out there are probably going to be playing some of the smaller buy-in events, and the Colossus offers great value. It's probably the tournament that has the most inexperienced field. So I wanted to talk about a hand I played in the Colossus, if that's all right.
Yeah. Now, that one's the 565, is that right?
Correct. And I think there were 22,000 players in it.
Okay.
So it's aptly named the Colossus.
Yes.
Yeah. So we made the first break. We come back from the first break for level 5, and the blinds at this point are 150, 300 with a 50 ante.
Okay.
There's only 7 players at our table. Don't ask me why.
Okay. You'd think with 22,000 they could fill it up, but I guess not.
Yeah. It's easier said than done, I guess.
They don't have enough players yet. Once they get to 23K, you'll get a full table.
Right. Now in this
2
tournament,
people actually were there, but they just picked up in chips and dropped out of the tournament when Clayton started telling jokes. So actually,
they said nothing is worth sitting through this.
No, thank you. I'm going to go over to the Nugget and play a $60 tournament.
Yeah. Yeah. This isn't worth $1 million to have to listen to this guy anymore. So we have 8,000. We started with 5,000. So in the first 2 hours, we've run it up pretty good, up to 8,000. We're in third position, or as you might say, under the gun +2.
Okay.
With the ace-4 of clubs.
Ace, clubs, 4 clubs. Okay.
So this is our original starting table. The table itself has been pretty good. My perception is that all my opponents are amateur players. They seem to be taking it fairly seriously. The play has been mostly medium, tight, mostly passive. There hasn't been anything tricky. I haven't seen any check raise bluffing or any 3-betting light or anything like that. It's been a lot of ABC, mostly I don't want to lose. I get the feeling most of my opponents are in town for the weekend. This is their one shot to try to win a lot of money, and that's kind of what's going on. I feel like
you're basically in the that would be the hijack, right? So you got the cutoff button and then the blinds to get through.
No.
Yeah.
No, he's not the hijack. He's UTG2, Steve. So he's got 6 people behind him.
Well, let's see. There's 7 players at the table, right? So that means UTG.
Oh, I'm sorry,
and
seven
UTG1
players
folded.
Yeah, it's
So
7-handed. Two folds to me.
Okay. And then you got 4 people left behind you. You got 26, 27 big blinds. Bump it up to, I don't know. In this spot, I would probably make it 750, something like that.
Okay.
Maybe even go smaller. Maybe do like 650 just to kind of take initiative in the hand, try to get position and go heads up with a big blind. I wouldn't fold here.
Okay. Mike, you on the board with that?
Yep, good steal.
Okay. Yeah, so I opened to 700. Now, I do have about 27 big blinds. For those who prefer M, like myself,
Like
my
Clayton?
my M is 10, and that just helps me because in this tournament, I think M tells you a lot more than how many big blinds, because if you look at these blind levels, this is important. 150, 300 with a 50 ante.
Yeah.
For those of you who play online, you will never see an ante that's 1/3 the size of the small blind online. So this is really different than what you're used to. Yeah. So there's already 800 in the pot before I even get involved. So that's important to consider. So yeah, I make it 700, and only the big blind calls, and he's got me covered. He's got about 10,000.
Okay.
So let me tell you a little
All right,
about
so we
big
got,
blind.
Okay.
He's about 35. He's a white guy with a golf hat on. He kind of has like a Midwest feel to him. Maybe he's from like, I don't know, Iowa, Nebraska, someplace like that.
Okay.
Up until this point, he hasn't really gotten out of line. I definitely don't get the sense that this guy plays a lot of high-stakes tournaments and that it's possible this is the biggest shot he's ever taken.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, if you don't know, the Colossus is a $565 buy-in, which for a lot of players, that's a lot of money. If they're used to playing $75, $80 tournaments at their local card room, this is kind of a shot, all right?
Right.
So that's the sense I get from this gentleman. And now we're heads up to the flop. It comes, there's 2,200 in the pot. We have 7,300 behind. So our SPR, stack to pot ratio, is 3.5. The flop is Jack of Hearts, Trey of Hearts, Deuce of Clubs. So we have a gut shot, an overcard, and a backdoor flush draw.
Yeah.
Our opponent checks.
Okay. Big blind checks. I like a c-bet here. Into 2,200, I'd probably make it, I don't know, 13, 14, something like that.
Okay, Mike?
Yeah, I don't. How much I see bet would be maybe a little bit villain dependent. My always unbalanced play. If I thought he's a guy who's simply not going to proceed without a flush draw or a top pair here, then I think you can bet a little smaller maybe.
Okay. I don't think that balance is important at all at this table. Just for the record. I decided not to bet this, and I'll explain why. I feel like if he hit any piece of this flop, he's not folding. And if he hit a flush draw, he might bust out the old check raise. Now, it's not very likely, especially given my read of him, but I wouldn't put it past him. I don't feel like I can get any better hand to fold other than perhaps like ace 9 or something.
Okay.
So I don't really see a lot of value in betting other than to protect my ace high. So I chose not to bet. And I've been thinking about this a lot, especially as I study Andrew Brokas's videos on tournamentpokeredge.com. Andrew's a friend of mine as well. And he talks a lot about when you continuation bet, but you probably have the best hand, what are you really accomplishing?
Well, let's see. Better hands to fold. I think like probably ace 6 through ace 9 is folding. Is ace queen folding here?
No, probably not.
Ace queen, ace king are not folding. What about like some of the Broadway hands? Like, well, king queen we're already beating. King 10. Those Broadway hands that don't have a jack, they might be folding.
What was the flop again? Right?
It's jack, trade, deuce with 2 hearts.
Well, the one of the reasons I like c-betting here, like he's not folding 7s, but he is folding 7s to a second barrel.
Okay.
So your that range of hands you think you have to put in 2 bets. I think it's more convincing usually. A lot of times if it's flop turn, because if you delay c-bet on the turn, sometimes the river just betting again just doesn't make a lot of sense.
Okay.
But I understand. Yeah, he's. I mean, I think he is. Might still fold some small medium pairs to one barrel. I don't know.
I don't think so. I think that amateur players from the Midwest who flop a pair are at least going to call you one time.
Yeah,
right.
My thought for betting here was that by leading out, we take the initiative in the hand. If he's sitting here with pocket 8s or 9s, like Mike was saying, he might fold to a turn barrel. And there's some good turns out there. Any club, there's 10 of those, 3 aces, and 3 5s because we counted one of the 5s already in the club. So you got 16 good cards on the turn. That you can fire on, which out of 47, that's about a third of the time you'll be able to fire on the turn. And I don't know, I kind of like a little bet here. But, you may be right in that we're only getting him to fold like those few offsuit aces. But the other hands he's going to fold anyways, we're already beating like 10-9, 8-9, stuff like that. Maybe you're right. Maybe there is no point in betting.
Yeah, well, there's some point. I mean, you protect your ace high. If he has something like king, queen, if I check, I give him a free card to beat me. So there's something to be said for protecting my hand if it's good. But to me, I just feel like checking is better because I'm probably good right now. And if I'm not good right now, it's very unlikely that I can get him to fold with 1 barrel. Which brings up the point of, well, if he has pocket 5, 6s, 7s, something like that, he would probably fold to the second barrel, depending on what the next card happens to be. But most likely we can barrel him again and get him to fold. But then the question becomes, at this type of table, is the optimal strategy to be double barrel bluffing against an amateur opponent from Nebraska? Or is the ideal strategy to just make hands against these amateur players and get paid?
Right.
So online I could see a lot more, and especially, thinking in terms of like an online player, I could barrel now and then barrel again if one of my 16 cards that improve my hand come down. Like, I get all that, but I feel like one of the big differences between playing live and playing online is that I know who this guy is.
Yeah.
And I can look at him and figure out what he's up to, and I don't need to turn my ace high into a bluff or get involved in some elaborate bluffing strategy to try to push him off of pocket 7s, which honestly, God knows, he could hang on for dear life for 3 streets with that hand.
Yeah.
Maybe he's got it in for me because I've been winning at this table. You know, who knows?
It's probably a good. I just felt like disagreeing with your move just because you get a lot of women.
No, it's okay. But just remember, Mike, the devil does not need an advocate.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah, it is interesting for the Colossus. On one hand, you could say the people are bad. I'm gonna get paid with good hands, with good value hands. On the other hand, this is a shallow, swiftly moving tournament. So that would be the argument for just pushing every edge.
That's
especially if you're willing to rebuy. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah, but like I said, there's something to be said for just checking back and maybe firing one. Well, maybe you don't even have to fire. What is your? If we can look ahead to if he leads turn, which cards would you maybe be raising as a bluff, or which cards would you be folding or calling? Do you have, before we get to the turn, do you think we could start think about that ahead of time?
Yeah, that's a great idea. So assuming assuming the card that hits the turn is a good one for us and our opponent bets, we don't have to be balanced. If we want to raise all of those cards, I think that's probably profitable. So by that I mean any club, any ace, obviously a 5 that gives us a straight.
Yeah.
Those kind of cards, maybe even a 6 that gives us. Well, no, the 6 doesn't help us at all. But there are a number of cards. I think Steve counted 16. I believe him. If any of those cards hit, yeah, we can sit here and do it. But Steve said 16. That's good enough for me.
We'll roll with that one. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Yeah, he once successfully pulled a hose out of a fire truck. He must know how to do math.
Right.
We're using a real scientific approach here. I actually would not be raising the ace.
Okay.
That'd be the one card immediately I'm saying.
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, like it's villain dependent. Some of these Nebraska dudes will bluff twice. So.
Yeah, he might see the fact that I check back as an opportunity for him to take the pot away. So I can either hang on.
I was going to say I like kind of clicking it back if he leads the turn on a lot of boards, just like repping that you had the jack and we're trying to get him to put some chips in.
Okay.
So I'm just obviously any hand you can take a bunch of approaches, and he might, if he checks back again on the turn, he probably a lot of times has nothing, or maybe still 6s or 7s.
Right.
So, but okay, it goes check on the flop.
Yeah, so the turn is the jack of spades, which pairs the board. So it pairs the top card. So the board is now jack of hearts, jack of hearts, tray of hearts, deuce of clubs, jack of spades. And with 2,200 in the pot, my opponent now bets 800. But he doesn't just bet 800. He loudly states 800 in an angry sounding tone, announces it forcefully, puts his chips down rather hard, and then looks me right in the eye with a scary, intimidating facial expression, which I, of course, read as weakness.
Yeah.
Usually amongst the amateur players, that is. Yeah.
Yes. So what's our move?
So you didn't instantly fold your hand and then run away screaming from the table?
As scary as it was, I managed to maintain my composure. Yeah, maintain my composure in the face of this stare down.
Just say, sir, are you aware that I'm friends with Mike Sneideman? That stare could get you killed in this town.
That's right. That's right. Rampage is coming after you, buddy.
Let's see. We got ace high. We got ace 4 clubs. Our backdoor did not come in. The jack is kind of good because now we can be pretty certain he doesn't have one. And with this theatrics, the problem here is that like pocket, 5s is a bluff, and we can't even beat that. And how weak is he really? This I could see something like this with like King Queen of Hearts or something.
He could be doing it with his hole. He thinks you just missed, and he could steal the pot. So he could be doing it with his higher.
I couldn't fold here. Could you, Mike?
No, I think it's a call. I just wanted to get, before I forget the question, Clayton, you're talking about how this guy's acting like a tough guy. I mean, you as the performer, do you have a few tricks in the bag to like make it look like you're weak, or like reverse tell?
Yeah, I mean that's really
You've got the nuts, but you're trying to make it look like how the fish looks when he's pretending he has the nuts, although you really do have, you know what I mean?
Yeah, actually, I have a number of tells that are actual tells, like things that I do when I'm strong and things that I do when I'm weak. And I'm aware of these things. And instead of trying to get them completely out of my game and sit there like a robot, like Chris Ferguson circa 2005, yeah, I just do some of those things when the opposite is true, so that whatever information you might be gathering by staring at me is useless because it's unreliable at best. That said, if I feel like my opponent is really trying to study me, I think I'm a good enough actor to either flip the script on him, like if he's a good enough player that knows that strong usually means weak, weak usually means strong, and I can mix it up where maybe I could get him to do what I want him to do. I definitely do not get that sense from this guy. If he is an actor, he's a really bad one.
Gotcha. One hand I always give away. Whenever I flop quads, I yell at the top of my lungs, "Anna Kate loves me."
Yeah.
Just,
I was wondering if she'd be making an appearance on this episode.
I said I wasn't going to mention her again, but just in case you slid it in there.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm assuming you're calling here, or are you actually thinking of raising? No, it's a call every time.
I thought of raising, but I think calling is better because I think my opponent is bluffing. But I want to address what Steve said about pocket fives. I feel like with pocket fives, my opponent would not bet in this manner. I feel like with pocket fives, he would know that there's a reasonable chance his hand is good, and he would bet 800 in a normal way and maybe see if I call or not. It wouldn't really have such a strong opinion over whether or not I call. He's trying to will me into throwing my cards away.
Yeah.
Now, the only real question to me is, does he have any bluffs that are beating me? And he does. I think if he has like ace 7 of hearts, he might bet it on the turn because he has a flush draw and he was looking to check raise the flop, but I didn't oblige him. But I think in that spot he might bet more than 800. Remember, he's only betting like just over a third of the pot, which is a very small bet.
Yeah.
It just, with the board pairing, no professional would bluff this card because the guy in position, in this case Clayton, if he was good on the flop, he's good on the turn.
Yeah.
Right.
But as I mentioned, this is not a professional opponent, and I wouldn't put it past him to try to say, oh, well, you check. Okay, so now because you check, I have to bet. I don't want to bet a lot because I don't have anything, so I just put in 800 and try to scare you into folding your hand. He doesn't know how many times I've seen this before, so obviously it doesn't work. So I call, and when I called, I noticed that he looked disappointed.
Okay. Good.
And at that point, I didn't think that he was bluffing or acting. I thought that he was genuinely disappointed that I called. And I fully expected him to never bet the river. Okay. The river was the 7 of spades, which completes no draws at all.
Yeah.
He bets 1,800 and quickly, which really surprised me. I did not expect this river bet. And, there's 3,800 in the pot, so he's betting just under half the pot now here on the river.
Is he that aware of, bet sizing?
No.
Okay.
No, but the fact remains he has bet almost half the pot.
Yeah.
Right.
Whether that was an accident or it's like, I bet 800 on the turn, someone's bet 1,800 on the river. I don't know. I think for him, this is a big bet. Remember,
he knows where to find a good game of darts in Omaha on a Wednesday night. The bet sizing is not exactly.
Yeah.
I fold here. The way you described his bet, it's like the 7 helped him or something because he had pocket 7s the whole way. Or I just couldn't make a call here, I don't think. And,
Mike?
If we shove here, we got to go.
That's an option I didn't think of.
I mean, if we're going by Clayton's thought that on the turn he's either got, a jack, which is, 10% of the time, or absolutely crap, which is 90% of the time, then, he's folding here 9 out of 10 times, right?
Yeah, but I never said he could have a jack on the turn. I think it's very close to zero. I mean,
well,
for
if
him
it's
to
close to zero, yeah, like I said, I don't want to lose to a better ace high here. But
right.
does he realize? He might not realize. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess he could have pocket sevens, but I don't know. Some it reminds me of some hand I was discussing with somebody, and they're basically like, when you're bluff catching, whichever hands which could plausibly bluff beat the guy's bluffing range, fold like the bottom 25% of it.
Okay.
Can you say that again, but say it a different
You know what
way?
I mean? Like here, even though they perform kind of similar against, we think the hands he's bluffing with, king high, jack high, nothing. He does have some ace highs that beat us.
Yeah.
So really, if you have for some reason, king deuce here or whatever. I'm sorry. What's the final board yet? Jack, 7, 4 deuce.
3 deuce.
3 deuce. Like if for some reason you have a 3 or a deuce here, if you had opened 5-3 suited or something, like call with the 5-3 but not the ace 4. Although they should be almost exactly the same against his range. But there is a little difference. He does have a few bluffing hands that ace 4 loses to. Correct?
Yeah, I mean okay. So when he bets 800 on the turn, he doesn't have pocket sevens, especially in the way that he bet 800 on the turn. He doesn't. I don't think that he could have a pair on the turn. And if he made a pair with the 7 on the river, I'm not sure that he would bet 1800 quickly. I mean, he did it like almost as soon as the card hit, which again to me is the old strong equals weak against an amateur opponent kind of tell. Betting fast is usually a bluff because, I mean, and don't apply this like
he's going to do it.
Yeah, don't apply this logic if you're playing against.
When I'm saying worried about the stronger aces, he's probably 3-betting ace king and ace queen pre maybe fair amount of the time.
I think a lot of these guys would call with ace queen and always 3-bet with ace king.
Okay, we're just trying to take a few combos out of the bigger aces here, but even it sounds like if you believe your read on the turn is pretty spot on, which you seem pretty confident in, then I guess this is an easy call.
Well, that definitely shove. I kind of like your shove, Mike, because then you get him to fold ace 10, ace 9, ace 8, stuff like. If you call here, then we just lose to that.
Yeah, is it worth it though? I have this read, okay, and I feel like I know my opponent, and I have a lot of control over my table, and I feel like I understand this guy, and I know what he's up to. But is it worth it to take the risk of shoving when I might be wrong?
Does have a jack, yeah.
If I'm wrong, I'm out of the tournament.
Yeah.
And I know you could say, like, well, you can always buy in again, but I don't look at it that way.
No.
I never look at it that way. I try to make the best play. I don't worry about whether the registration period has ended, and I could just fire another, because they charge a rake every time you buy in. It's like that money's going down the drain.
Or you could forfeit your unfavorable stack and go buy in
right,
again.
Yeah. It's like, no, thank you. I don't want to do that. I'm old school. I'm from the time when rebuys didn't have rake.
Yeah.
So it's a different world. So, yeah, I mean, I guess my question is it worth it to shove and take that risk just to buy those few ace high hands that beat us?
Well, what do we think a major part of his range here is then? Is it like the 9-7 of hearts, or the 9-6 of hearts, or the 10-9 of hearts? Like, do we just throw all those connectors with hearts in them? And because that's what we're beating right there.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is this villain even? You said he acted quickly. Like, he's not even stopping to range you. He's probably not somebody who's like, what is his calling range on the turn here?
No, he doesn't think that way.
He's just thinking, well, if this guy had a jack, he would have raised me here. He doesn't have a jack. Yeah. Let's just rep it.
That's more like his thought process, and the fact that mentality? And the fact that I didn't bet the flop. I think
kind of opened the door for him to, if he is bluffing, this is why, because I check behind on the flop, and where he's from, if you have a jack, you bet it. You don't check behind.
I think I'm calling. Yeah, I think we could come up with a couple of reasons to we're shoving to get him, like, of his bluffing combinations. Like I said, maybe 10% of them is ace high. So it's not worth the risk.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's kind of doing this with all of his unpaired cards. Every time he has nothing, that's his range for doing this.
If you really felt he's got nothing and he's folding, there is some merit, of course, to shoving. He folds and you flip over the 4.
Yeah, so the question.
Just for that, you know what I mean?
Just to make him snap.
Nothing like ribbing an amateur opponent who's just a nice guy from Iowa or something, just to get under that guy's skin for no reason at all.
Oh, he's nice. Okay, then I'm sorry. Fold and take a walk with Stevie and have a smoothie and just get away.
No. I'm just saying I don't see any reason to show the 4. Just to be that guy and show the 4. No, I thought about raising, but I decided to call, and he mucked his hand. So I don't know. To this day, I have no idea what he had. But I found this hand interesting because I started this with an M of 10, 27 big blinds, and my strategy was to not get involved in a bluffing thing, and then ended up getting bluffed, but I just couldn't put the guy on a hand. What hand bets 800 on the turn and then 1800 on the river instantly? And what hand bets 800 and looks at me like he wants to eat my children? Right? Like, why is he acting like this if he really has a jack or something else that's good?
Yeah.
You know, it just was impossible for me to put him on a hand, so I had to fade the chance that he could have a better ace high, or that he was playing some hand with a jack in a way that just bewildered me. I couldn't put him on anything. I think he had maybe 5-4 or any 2 hearts, or he could really have just God knows what.
Right.
It's also possible that he mocked the best hand.
I was thinking that maybe he insta-mucked ace 8 or something.
Yeah, what if he had ace 8 and he folded it? You know, that would be incredible. But I'll never know. And I'm sorry, Mike, but I didn't show the 4.
No, I wouldn't anyway. I was just trying to think of some reason to shove there. If you think he's bluffing, 95% plus. I don't really. I'm never looking to humiliate anyone unless some guy's giving me shit or something.
Yeah, no, he was actually perfectly fine until we played this hand together, and then he started giving me the stare down and trying to act scary. But that was more just part of his poker game, not just the fact that he's a jerk. But
I got you.
I found this hand interesting because
you have to now. Sometimes I guess if you're playing 10, 20, you're playing higher level cash games. You're seeing guys who are who might even overbet value pocket 9s here.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Do you have to do you consciously switch gears where, okay, this is a $565 tournament.
Absolutely.
People are giving me a lot of information that I'm just, you don't want to level yourself out of pots. Well, man,
Absolutely.
this guy could be turning pocket 6s into a bluff here.
Right. If you're playing against Doug Polk and he makes a big bet and then tries to look scary and says his bet amount really loud, don't put any stock in that because he's good enough to do a lot of things. If you're playing against a really talented professional, you can't rely on tells to guide your way through a hand where you have ace high and you're calling down all the way.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like learning GTO and learning push fold charts and all that stuff is really important. But when we get to Vegas, this is the kind of stuff we're going to be doing, which is playing real poker in person, not against a computer or somebody in Finland who's clicking buttons, but against a person who has his own motivations and is behaving in a certain way. And what I get off on in poker and in comedy is trying to analyze what's going on in the room. This is what live poker is all about. Now, I fist pump, pat myself on the back because I happen to be right when I call with ace high. I mean, if I lost this hand, I'd probably still share it with you guys because I think this hand shows that you want to have if you have a read and you feel like it's reliable, you should use it. Even if you did read somewhere that your bluff catcher should only be the best, not the bottom 25, whatever, all that stuff. This is not an online hand. I'm looking at this guy and I feel a certain way.
all the hours I've spent at the table kind of tell me what to do. And don't get me wrong, I'm not sitting here pretending that I'm always right when I have these feelings. But in this particular case, in this particular tournament, which features a very large field of mostly inexperienced opponents, I think you can do things like this, and it's plus EV. It also happened to work this time, but I think it's plus EV whether it worked this time or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you use Table Talk at all?
Yeah, quite a bit. I mean, I love a friendly table where people like to talk about sports, or if they find out that I'm a comedian, they want to talk about who my favorite comedians are, or whatever, where the best restaurants are in Vegas. Like, that just makes the game more fun to me.
If they find out I'm a comedian. Clayton sits at the table. Anyone looking for an autograph?
I actually wear a T-shirt with my picture on it.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, I have a Sharpie right here.
Yeah, I mean, I love that.
Yes, honey, I'll sign your upper breast, but only if you actually keep the bra on.
Yes.
Please, this time, don't embarrass yourself.
Yes. Civilized, ladies. Civilized. Single file line. Single file line.
Yeah, no, I like talking about life. I just don't like to discuss poker at the table. So if people start asking me, would you have raised if I called? Would you have gone? Would you call if I shoved? Like that kind of stuff. I usually just try not to answer the question. Try to talk about something else. And sometimes I'll just tell them, you know what? You guys are all good at poker. I can't afford to be giving you information that you don't already have. So you can ask me all those kind of questions, but I promise I won't answer any of them.
Right.
And that's kind of my way of getting out of that whole conversation. Because I hate when it becomes like everybody talking poker, because what that does is it makes everybody focus more on the poker, and I don't want that.
No.
It's hard enough to win without everybody playing their A game. Why would I want to create an environment where people are playing their A game?
Exactly.
Pretty good. Makes
Round
sense.
of shots for the table. Let's go.
Yeah. Get a beer.
You have one more hand for us?
Yeah, sure. So this one's a little higher. This is the $1,100 Venetian, I think, that plays in the beginning of July. So it's a little more than halfway through the summer. So you'll find that when you first arrive in Vegas, end of May, early June, people are excited. They're optimistic. They have positive energy. I find the longer the summer goes on, the more your opponents become bitter and angry and upset that they're down 30,000 for the summer or whatever the case may be. So that factors into this hand a little bit. This tournament attracted 483 players. There's about 300 of us left. 54 of the remaining 300 will be in the money, so we're nowhere near the money. This table's much tougher than the other one I was talking about. We have some good, competent, professional players at the table. My stack is above average by about 50%. The blinds are 250, 500 with a 50 ante.
Okay.
So our M is 30, and we have about 72 big blinds.
30, 72.
Which means we have 36,000 in chips.
Okay.
And I think we started this tournament with about 25,000 or something. Maybe 20,000. I'm not sure. Anyway, we're definitely a little bit above the average stack. And we have most of the players at our table covered. We have pocket kings. It's a full table, 9-handed. 3 folds to us. So we're in 4th position, or under the gun +3 if you prefer. We have 2 red kings. And it's on me.
Yeah, make it 1250, 13, something like that.
Yeah. You okay with that, Mike?
Yeah, raise, sure.
Yeah, okay. So I made it 12. I think 1250, 13 are also fine, of course. The player on my immediate left with about 25,000, also known as 50 bigs, who's a competent professional that I've been impressed with, calls. That's bad news. The button, who's by far the worst player at the table, he's like Israeli, I think. He's made a lot of really stupid plays so far. He's been extremely loose aggressive, and I think that he's on accumulation tilt from a terrible summer. He calls, and he's got about 12,000 behind, about 24 big blinds.
Okay.
And one more caller, the small blind, who was a very bitter British guy who's been complaining about the food at the Venetian, which if you've ever eaten at the Venetian, there is literally nothing to complain about. The food there is amazing.
It's amazing food.
You can complain about the food at the Venetian, you just suck as a human. So he's crying about the food and the service, and I can't believe these chairs. Like, the Venetian's one of the nicest places to play poker, and I don't care that Sheldon Adelman wants to take away online poker forever. The place is nice, and it's a good place to play cards. This
really?
guy's just.
I thought you were a huge fan of online poker.
I've had some time in front of the screen, but I definitely prefer the live game. So anyway,
I haven't noticed, but go on. Okay.
Yeah, he's got 22,000, 42 bigs, and he calls. Now he thinks he's the best player at the table, maybe the best player in Las Vegas. So just to give you a sense of him.
What was the small blind stack and then the big blind stack?
Yeah, the big blind folded.
Oh, the big blind folded. Okay, the small blind had how much?
Yeah, so to recap, the player on my immediate left called with 25,000, 50 big blinds. The button, who's the terrible Israeli player, has 12,000, 24 big blinds and calls. Then the small blind, who's the British guy complaining about the food, has 22,000.
We're gonna call him Little Rampage because he's got some ego and psychological issues, right?
Yeah, that guy. He's Little Rampage. Little Rampage has 42 bigs, 22,000. Okay. All right. Okay. So the pot is now 5,500, and our SPR is 7. We have 3 opponents, and we go to a flop. Jack, 6, Trey, with the Jack of clubs and Trey of clubs, 6 of diamonds.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And we've got King of Hearts, King of Diamonds.
Correct. Now, to my surprise, they don't check to the razor. Little Rampage leads out for 1,700 into 5,500 from the small blind, and it's on me.
But stating the obvious, just by calling him Little Rampage, we've changed the dynamics of this hand. Losing to Rampage is embarrassing enough. Losing to Little Rampage just feels like having your nuts clipped off there.
Yeah.
But
this time it's personal.
Well, I'm trying to figure out if we need to raise or call.
If it was a heads-up pot, I would always be clicking it back here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thinking that he has just one pair and maybe he's getting pushed around and da-da-da. And he's going to be shoving it in here, maybe with a lot of hands you dominate.
Oh, so you would click to induce a spaz. I like that. But
if it, in a heads-up pot.
Yeah, in a heads-up pot. Yeah, but we got these other guys to worry about.
So the button's also obviously, I don't know what happens after here, though. I think I would have a lot of difficulty, folding on this flop here, because I'm taking jacks out of their range. I'm taking 2 pairs out of their range. So for someone to be ahead of you right now, they have to have 6s or 3s.
Right. Yeah, they'd have to have flopped bottom set or middle set. I agree.
Yeah. So I might be raising here, willing to get it in, regardless of what happens behind me. I mean, I guess if you make it 5,500 here and 2 guys shove, I guess you got to find a fold, even though you've got at that point, a third of your chips in the pot or whatever it is.
Yeah. So does that mean it's better to call, or do you think we should raise and then be prepared to fold if all hell breaks loose?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Do we want to induce? I mean, just because it's a multi-way pot doesn't mean someone has a flush draw.
That's true.
But collectively, they probably have collectively 50% equity maybe against you. Somebody's got a gutter ball.
Yeah.
Somebody's got an over and a backdoor flush.
4 or 5
somebody
has a pair open-ended. You've got all the clubs in there.
But if he bets and not that you're going to see 4-way to the turn. I guess the reason for raising was I don't want to give 2 people a chance to draw out on me by seeing the turn card. So I'm tempted to raise, but
I was thinking raise too, Mike, but maybe a little bit smaller. Make it like 45. I think we'll accomplish the same thing, and if you get you can kind of get the same amount of information for betting a little bit less, and maybe that'll be just enough for Little Rampage to reshove with his 5-4 or with his club draw or,
Yeah,
Well, we don't mind getting him. We don't mind maybe getting him to fold. That's why I bet a little. I mean, if he shoves, he might. I mean, he might have crap, but he probably has a decent amount of equity against you. He might, other than the Jack X, you want him to shove, but you don't really mind him. You don't mind him folding the club draw here, obviously.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah.
Yeah. You want to lock up that equity because there's a lot of chips in the pot.
Yeah.
I don't know, Steve. I'm just giving my defense for what might be a poorly played hand if I were to play it, which is just I'm gonna, regardless of how any of these guys play it, I'm just I mean we'll have to see the details of. I'm willing to get it in, is all I'm saying here, even in a multi-way pot. So I'm curious. I like raising here, although I don't know if that's the right move.
I think it is. I made it 4,800, and one reason for that is because the guy on my immediate left, his pre-flop call is a little upsetting. I don't want him in the hand with me, and I want to make it hard for him to continue in the hand. I'd like to try to isolate Little Rampage, the British guy, because I just think that we're well ahead of his donking range. Yep.
Yeah.
So I'd like to encourage the other players to fold, and I fear that just calling the 1,700 might make them stick around. They'll be getting pretty good odds to call with a lot of hands.
Yeah.
So I just feel like I want to have position against Little Rampage heads up on the turn. That's what I'm trying to accomplish.
The button, though, like as you described him, you do flat. You might get I don't know if. I mean, your flat looks like you've got, a pair for sure or some sort of strong hand. So he really should not be squeezing or shoving there with too much crap. But if you do raise, you describe that guy as looking like he's kind of tilty.
Yeah.
You do take that play away from him, but I don't know the frequency that's going to happen.
Yeah. So, I'm not really sure about that either. He's been very much a wild card. Like most of the plays that he's made haven't made much sense at all. So,
right.
He's
a lagtard.
Yeah, he just seems like he doesn't really care anymore. He's lost so much money this summer. He's just looking to get it in or whatever. I don't really know what's going on with him, but he's not quite right.
Okay.
So I made it 4,800. So little more than Steve said, a little less than Mike said. The pro on my left cold calls, which hurt my stomach. Yeah. Then the worst player, the Israeli guy, decides to shove for 11,000. Little Rampage gives a little, well, I had to see where I'm at speech and throws his cards away angrily.
That's the equivalent of picking up your cards and holding them 6 inches from your face so that everyone around you can see. And then when you see that move, you know they're out.
And then I had to see where I'm at, and then he throws his cards away, and then he started complaining about the waitress again or whatever. And now it's back.
Little Rampage hasn't been laid for 6.5 years. Give him some, cut him some slack.
He's got problems. So now it's up to me. Cost me 6,200 to call.
I think you're ahead of the button shoving range, but where are you against the flatting range of the guy to your left? Right. So that we're more worried about him, correct?
Yeah, I mean his call pre-flop indicates a very strong hand.
Well, when I said take jacks out of their range, I guess maybe we can't take jacks out of his range.
Yeah, he could
Jacks
potentially.
make a lot of sense there,
Yeah, for him to just flat there, pre-flop, he could have jacks. But would he,
with a flush draw out there,
would he just call my 48 with jacks now?
I think maybe it's a good spot for him to raise there. I mean, especially with the flush draw out there.
Yeah, I mean, the guy who let out probably has a flush draw, or the guy behind him could also have a flush draw. Wouldn't he want to protect his set? Or maybe some people like to gamble, and then shove on a safe turn card.
Right. No, that's
So as I read this, Clayton, there's 27,800 in the pot when it gets back to us, and you've got to call 6,200 to call the all-in. Or how much do you have behind at this point?
I have the whole table covered. So the player on my immediate left, the guy that we're concerned might possibly have jacks, has started this hand with about 50 big blinds, 25,000.
So he's got like 20K left after the
after he calls that
20K.
Calling and folding if the guy shoves on our left. Are we eliminating that possibility? At that point, we would have put half our stack in, or a little less. We started the hand with 30K maybe.
Half of his stack.
Right. If we call and he shoves, at that point we're getting what, like
4 to 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like we either got we just got the button crushed. But the guy on our left, I feel like we either got to shove or fold. That sounds crazy with kings on this board, but man,
the button.
I think the question is, how often is the pro to our left doing this with like ace queen of clubs? And I just don't know that he's doing that this often, just calling there like that. Because the small blind bet out, that basically means nothing. Everyone probably read him as weak, and that was just a little pro bet. When you bump it up, you're announcing now that you got a really strong hand, and then for him to just call there, like, it just feels like a set. Or
does he call with Jack X there?
Yeah, does he call there with Jack 10 or Queen Jack?
How many? I mean, we're assuming he's got like a draw or a nutted hand here, but I mean, does he have pocket tens ever there, or Jack Queen with the Queen of Clubs?
See, this is why I like coming on this podcast with you guys, because we think alike. My notes on this hand in my little poker notebook, it says his cold call seems strong, but it could be ace of clubs, queen of clubs, or ace of clubs, jack of diamonds, where he's got top pair. He's not ready to fold yet because he has a backdoor flush. He's just not convinced yet that he's beat. He might call me with the ace jack with the ace of clubs, something like that. He could be drawing to a flush, but so much strength has already been shown in this hand. He doesn't want to semi-bluff with it because he's pretty sure he's going to get action. I'm talking about when he calls my 4,800. He doesn't know the other guy's about to put it all in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But to me, I feel like most players, if they had flopped a set, would have re-raised the 4,800 on the flop. Now, I'm not saying everybody, and there is still a chance that he's slow playing a set of jacks, the nuts right now. Or even a set of sixes or trays, I guess he could have. Although his call with 3-3 pre-flop would have been, I don't know if he would actually make that call. Most players would fold that hand. He's got the worst relative position. So, yeah, but as I thought through it, I just didn't feel like he had a lot of sets in his range, because I feel like those hands would have not just flatted to 48.
Well, I threw in some ranges right here while we're talking for the guy to our left. I put pocket threes, pocket sixes. Then I put pocket jacks, queens, kings, and aces. I put ace jack suited, king jack suited, queen jack suited, jack 10 suited, queen jack off, king jack off, and ace jack off. So
I think most players are folding a lot of those hands, though. Honestly, Steve, I don't think he's going to call with jack 10 or pocket threes. I mean, the chip leader has raised from early middle position. To his immediate left. You have to be careful. You can't just call with a lot of hands when there's all these players behind you that could bump it again, and now you're going to be in a sandwich.
Okay.
Most
so
players now know that.
Leave sixes, though, right? I think he's probably
six is probably the worst hand he would have, worst pair he would have.
Okay. And then
sixes
the
and
sevens,
jacks,
eights, nines, and tens, he's folding to your
yeah. He's not sticking around after the 48, right?
Well, again, if we're going by your read, then, if we think he's clicking back the sets there, then this is an easy shove. I mean, occasionally the button could, have a set too.
Of course, yeah. Just because he's an idiot doesn't mean he doesn't have anything.
Right, but if you're leaning towards the read that this guy is going to be raising, what was his stack to start the hand?
He had 50 big blinds, 25,000.
25K. He's basically put in a
at
little
this
bit more than
point,
5K here, so he's
yeah,
got
at
like
this point,
19.
if he were to take it down here, it's it's 10K in the pot or whatever it is. So
Well, let me ask you guys: do you agree with me that most players would raise with a set on this flop after it's already been led at and raised?
yeah, I would a lot of times with a set. I would want to make it look like a draw too. If you're trying to induce action, sometimes the flat looks too strong. People will sniff that shit out.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So that's another compelling reason to raise.
Yeah.
I don't know unless this guy has a read on the two guys to his left. It says, you know what? If I flat here, one of these fucking bozos is going to shove it in.
That could be it. I mean, the two guys that are going to shove light are going to be the small blind and then the Israeli button.
Yeah. Now
But if you got a set, I mean, top set is pretty strong stuff here.
Yeah.
So I mean, if he's putting you narrowly on like aces, kings, or queens or clubs, I mean, technically that's a fair amount of outs he's got to dodge, but you're not trying to kill the action really here, I don't think. The set, I would want to know. In my own mind, I'd be like, yeah, what looks weakest? Because of course, you just there's no way you can disguise your hand there.
Right. Whatever you do looks strong.
Yeah, you are strong. Somebody has led. The pre-flop has raised. You got two guys behind you. You don't close the action. Whatever you do here looks like you said, a massive draw at the worst.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, I would be leaning towards draw, toward putting him on a draw here more than a set. I guess if we think a lot of the Jack X are going to find their way into the foot. Did you have like a live read on him at all? Do you remember it all?
It was tough. Yeah, I do remember because I was actually looking at him while I was trying to figure out what I'm going to do. How committed to this hand is he? And, I just couldn't get a read on him. He's a really experienced professional player. He wasn't giving off tells like the guy in the other hand at all. So I really couldn't figure out what he was doing. He was kind of looking at the clock.
That is a great spot, by the way, to flat aces for him, as you've described the competition behind you.
Yeah, yeah.
But again, you got kings, and that's pretty good flop for kings. So if somebody hit a set on you or whatever,
I added some combos into here. I threw in ace king of clubs, ace queen of clubs, ace 10 of clubs, king queen of clubs, and king 10 of clubs. And we'll run this and press play. And you're a 72% favorite against the range of pocket sixes, pocket jacks, queens, kings, and aces, ace jack off, king jack off, queen jack suited, and then the clubs that we mentioned in the king jack suited, ace jack suited.
I mean, do you guys really think that? I mean, maybe I'm wrong about what it means when someone calls to your immediate left. When a good player calls to my immediate left, when I've raised from early middle position, I put that player on a strong range right away, pre-flop. I don't think too many guys are screwing around with like king 10 of clubs. I mean, in his shoes, I'm folding that, aren't you? Yeah. I think this guy's a competent player.
What about ace 10 of clubs? What do you think of ace 10 of clubs?
I mean, he probably should fold it, but some guys, it's just too pretty, and they call.
Yeah.
Yeah, like ace 10 of clubs would be those ace 10 of clubs, king 10 of clubs would be very common three-betting hands, three-bet or fold kind of hands.
Yeah.
Unless he was on the button, then that's a game changer.
Yeah, no, we're both in middle, so.
Yeah, so that is...
Well, I'm dumping some of these flush draws and putting them back in, and we're above 70% on each one of these. Yeah, you know what? I like a shove here. Sometimes he's got jacks, which make a lot of sense, but yeah, I'm going for it.
All right. Should I tell you?
What would you do, Mike? Would you flat here, or would you shove?
I'm either shoving or I'm clicking it, min-clicking it. I guess there's really no min click it. I was going to say just to somehow, if I think the guy on my left has ace jack, is there any way I can get him to put it in here? This would be
probably not. If you just call the 11, he's going to go away. I think with that.
He should be. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm just shoving. I mean, I guess. Yeah, I'm shoving.
Yeah. All right. So that's what I did. And to my delight, the cold caller finally got out of the hand. The Israeli guy had the 6 of clubs and the 4 of clubs. So he had a pair and a flush draw. And he got there, but that's not important. The cold caller told me later he had ace queen of clubs, which is something I thought he might have, and one of the hands that you guys said he might have. So I guess, good for us. Like, he didn't want to 3-bet pre-flop with that. He just wanted to call it strong enough to call. And he didn't want to raise or fold it, so he called. And then on the flop, it's like, how much more do I want to put in? I have a nut draw. I might as well just call the 48 and see if I can get there. And then all hell broke loose, so he had to go away.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, his play makes a lot of sense. He's a good player, so that all works out.
Yeah, I think, like you said, that's the hand that makes the most sense because he should be folding almost every Jack X. And like you said, the sets you'd think he'd raise more often than not. So we can kind of range him pretty narrowly.
I really came close to folding this. I never considered flatting the 11. To me, that's a raise fold situation because I don't want to call and invite this guy to call behind me with a club draw.
Yeah.
So I'm either going to fold and assume that one of these guys has something better than 2 kings, or I'm going to shove and try to get rid of the guy on my left, and then play for the smaller stack anyway too. So this doesn't end up like destroying my tournament. I lost 24 of my big blinds, and I started with 72. So it was devastating, but not like demoralizing,
Yeah.
It put my stack right around average after that, so that was fine. But had I just called, the flush ends up getting there. Now with results oriented, if I just call and I'll let the ace queen stay in, he's going to get a lot more of my chips. He's got a bigger stack. He's got 50 bigs, and then I'm down to 22 bigs if I let him stay in. So I feel like the biggest mistake on the flop would have been flatting. So I'm glad we didn't do that, despite the compelling odds that Steve calculated for us there.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just better to get rid of this guy. You want to play for your whole stack with ace high? Go ahead. But I made you pay for it.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. What do you think about bet sizing in these as we get ready for the summer? I mean, I just played a couple tournaments in California, and people just like never fold to 3-bets. I'm like, shouldn't really it be 4.5x rather than 3x? I mean, I just get in the online groove here. Here we raised 2.3x or whatever pre.
Yeah, no one folds. Yeah, I mean,
I'm just like, this guy wasn't going to fold in the button, and to be fair, 6-4 suited in position.
Yeah, I don't blame him for calling there.
Yeah, just I was thinking about this the other day. I'm like, should I be? I mean, like, why am I 2.5xing here, anyways? Especially, But anyways, just something to.
The case for him folding, other than his skill disadvantage that he's not going to play 6-4 well, is that his M is 10. He's got 24 big blinds. It's not really a big enough stack.
That's all he had. That's right.
Yeah, it's not really a big enough stack for him to speculate with that kind of hand.
I think 8-9 suited, maybe you call there.
Yeah, I feel like in his shoes.
Gapper.
Yeah, right, something like that. Yeah.
I was thinking 9-10, but yeah, we're in the same ballpark.
Yeah, I agree with that range. So,
way too big for such a short stack.
Bad players make bad plays, So.
Right. I thought Little Rampage played it perfectly, quite frankly. I think the man's an undiscovered genius. You mock him by saying, "Oh, he thinks he's the best player in Vegas."
Yeah, maybe he is. Maybe he is the best player in Vegas.
Well, he might be second best, but he's confident in his personal growth.
Well, you got your big rampage, then you got your little rampage. So those are 1 and 2, and that's why
there's so many delusional minds buzzing around that city.
It's incredible. It's that kind of city, though, isn't it?
Have you ever? I love all the people, all the advantage gamblers. Some of the blackjack is legit. Steve used to make money playing blackjack, but I remember a couple guys talking about like roulette, like knowing where the dealer released the ball, like his finger.
Oh god. Oh god.
Yeah, you could definitely
release the finger because he was very consistent in the spin. Blah blah blah. It was going to be always within 2 spots of this and that, and da da da. Oh, I always make sure that Ralphie's working. I make a lot of money off him.
Good old Ralphie.
Yeah.
I did read a book called American Roulette, and there is a way to win at roulette, but what you have to do is you have to know. Well, what these guys did was they cheated. So when the
Great.
when the number came out, they distracted the I guess the dealer, the pit boss for whatever lack of a better word, and then they'd slide a $100 chip underneath where the winning one was. But then the other way, I also read another book on people that won at roulette, and they would sit a person there and write down every single number, and they're never perfectly balanced. So they do tend to land on one number a few % more than the others, and they would just continually bet that number.
Well, before I play roulette, I always listen to 2 hours of Elliot Roe.
That could help as well. Yes.
Yeah, get in the right mindset for playing roulette before you go and degen your poker winnings away. You always want to first listen to Elliot Roe.
He'll let you know whether to pick black or red,
Definitely. Hey, just for the record, I'm not making fun of Elliot Roe. Everyone says he's the greatest. I'm making fun of Steve for constantly reminding me that I need to download the MP3s. Just to be clear. Don't get the wrong idea, listeners. Elliot Roe's reputation is second to none. So now Steve, on the other hand, no, that's another story.
Steve will be standing on the ladder outside a burning house. I'll let you come out here if
you listen to this MP3.
Yes.
Get in the right mindset before you evacuate your house.
Oh, great.
Oh, yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing you guys out there. We're going to have a great time.
Me too. Mike and I are getting a place together. Well, it's going to be, who's it going to be, Mike? Alex, you, and then 2 of his chess buddies. Is that right? Or
nice.
Yeah, some few other poker players from San Fran.
Good deal.
Great.
Good deal. Yeah, I'm excited.
Cool.
Steve, please tell me you've got like a normal swimsuit and not one of those nut huggers you're going to be bouncing around the pool.
Steve, with the banana hammock.
Speedos are nothing, bro. Sometimes my birthday suit.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
I'll skip the barbecue.
We're going to be at the same house that the TPE guys were at last year.
Oh, great.
And, yeah, it was kind of ironic. Mike basically told him I want to be close to the Rio with the swimming pool. And then they picked the same damn house that Derek and Mark and all those guys were in last year.
That's a good sign. It must be a good house.
That's awesome. Oh, it's an awesome house. Yeah, it is badass. So I'm looking forward to it. Going to be fun. But, well, thank you for coming on, Clayton. You guys can check out his podcast, Broadway Comedy Club Radio. If you type that in iTunes, it'll be the first one that comes up. And what's the name of your club in New York?
Yeah, so it's the Clayton Fletcher Show every Friday night at Greenwich Village Comedy Club. You can get tickets on theclaytonfletchershow.com.
Okay, perfect.
Very cool. And I will definitely follow you on Twitter. Follow him on Twitter and find out about the Joe Stapleton Show.
Yeah, Clayton Comic on Twitter. We're gonna hopefully we're in the process of trying to hook up a show during the main event so that players, after you're done playing in the main event, you can come and enjoy some comedy. Joe Stapleton is hilarious.
Maybe you guys should make it like a Penn and Teller thing where you kind of let Joe lead,
and I don't say anything.
Yeah, I'm just a suggestion.
Just silent there, awkward the entire time.
I think that's a great idea.
Just kind of whisper something into his ear.
We're just spitballing here.
Yeah, I don't see any downside to that plan.
Right on. Well, thank you, gentlemen. This was fun. And
thanks, guys.
You get your free 7-minute Tilt-Buster just like Clayton's going to do by clicking on the link in the show notes. And thank you for tuning in. Here is your weekly motivational speech.
I think that among the things that prevent us from acting is the fear of failure. And if you've already failed, you don't want to fail again. The pain of that, the disappointment. Many of us don't act because we want other people's approval. We want everybody to like us and to accept us. We're settling for less than what we actually deserve. We don't feel good about it, but we make it work in our minds. We'll come up with some kind of excuse to make it all right. Most people like to feel like they're a king in the area of their comfort zone. They only want to do those things that they know how to do well. So there are many reasons why we don't act. There are other things, though, that affect us, is that not wanting to take personal responsibility. We want somebody else to do it, and that's not possible. And when you go through life like that, something in you dies. You need to start asking yourself some questions. What do I really, really, truly want? Don't wait around for things to be just right. Don't wait for things to be perfect. Don't wait for the ideal situation. It will never be ideal.